Station. Thanks Radio.
Abbey Dental, sponsors of Women Today, for all aspects of today's dental care. Highly recommended throughout the Isle of Man.
Faster, my good afternoon. It's just gone 6 minutes past 2. I'm Christy DeHaven, and today we are back on the Conister Rock, where we spend an hour sharing music and memories with some of our best-loved island personalities. It should be said that the last time I saw our castaway, he was spraying the Gaiety audience with water from a panda's bottom, and children were shouting wishy wishy wee wee at him. But David Artus is not just about cheap laughs and toilet humour, allegedly. There are many strings to his theatrical bow, so to speak, after playing some of the biggest roles in musical theatre, from Phantom to Jean Valjean, featuring in a number of films and delighting and shocking audiences with his pantomimes, which he writes and stars in. I think it's safe to say he absolutely fits the title local celebrity, and I'm very much looking forward to spending the next hour sharing music and memories with him. Dave, your stage and screen bio, I have to say, is ridiculously impressive. It does beg the question, though, did you not ever consider the idea of sort of going off island to pursue your dreams?
Well, you've got to remember. Well, afternoon, Chrissy. You've got to remember how very old I am, and actually,
boy, you are not very old.
When I was probably had when I could have done it. It wasn't a possibility for me. There just wasn't, people didn't do that sort of thing. My dad said I had to work and went into a factory, and that was that sort of thing. And then, hey presto, before you know it, you've got a family, and actors are nomadic creatures, and you can't drag your families everywhere. And I love the Isle of Man, and I actually feel like I've got the best of both worlds. I've got a brilliant hobby, and then good job, and get to pay a mortgage and go on holiday and all the things that actors can't do, but still get to enjoy all the amazing aspects of theatre. So.
It's interesting, I was chatting about this actually downstairs with our Ben Hartley, who's been involved in theatre himself for some years, and pantomime, of course, pure pantomime as well. And we were talking about the possibility that for the likes of yourself and other actors and musical theatre stars and artists, musical artists or whatever, staying on the Isle of Man could actually afford you better opportunities in a way, because when you think of some of the roles that you've been able to play.
Oh, definitely. 1000%. There's absolutely no way my CV would read as it does, and obviously CVs are all made up anyway, so you'll know that that's a caveat of any CV that you read. But look, we've got, in terms of film, there was during the time when I was doing lots of one-liners is the best way you can describe it. Some of them were six-liners. Got to work with David Bowie and all this kind of thing. So one day in a factory, and then next day sat across the table with David Bowie rehearsing lines.
What was he like? I'm so jealous.
Oh, well, do you know what? I don't know, and I didn't get to speak to him because I was too nervous. What do you say to David Bowie? And there was about 6 other people in the room as well, so you don't go, "Hi, Dave, what do you have for tea?" Or it's not what you did. But that sort of thing was completely unique to the Isle of Man. Because I had an equity card, and they said, "Find me someone who looks like a policeman who can say 2 lines without falling over," and then I got to do that. Where could you do that in the world? Nowhere. And then the Isle of Man has been able to carve out this very unique niche for itself in terms of its rights to produce musicals. So nowhere in the world could you put on Phantom with amateur rights. Nowhere in the world could you do that with Les Mis or Miss Saigon. I've played leads in all those 3, and I don't think there's any actors that have done all those leads before, and that's nothing to do with my talent. That's to do with where I live. So
you're not too shabby, to be fair, Dave. I think plenty of people would say that.
Well.
Why is it then that we can capture those rights? What is it about the island?
Do you know what? I think it's just because it's not part of the UK. And it's not part of the EU. So, I believe that the likes of New Zealand have those exact same rights. So the thinking is that you're not taking seats away from the West End and Broadway. You're not a threat to them. But of course, you pay quite a lot of money to the writers of these musicals. So there's a nice halfway house between the two. And the acid test was, when we first started to get these rights, when they put on Les Mis and that sort of opened the floodgates, that we did it well. We didn't do it a disservice. We are fairly well off on the island in terms of our budget for production, but we have this amazing theatre as well. So it's not a bingo hall. You're not putting Les Mis on in your local cinema. It's in the one of the best theatres in the world, and all of that adds to someone making the decision to go, okay, Isle of Man, fair enough, let them have it.
And you say one of the best theatres in the world. We were just chatting before. I'd completely forgotten about the fact it not too long ago almost wasn't a theatre anymore.
Yeah. I mean, look, it costs money to run a theatre like that, and there's always politicians who are looking for low-hanging fruit to cull theatres. And I'm not sure if you're talking about in the 80s when it was sort of when it was rejuvenated by Mervyn Stokes, or whether a couple of years ago it was attempted to be sold off. but yeah, it was very dilapidated in the 80s, and luckily we had Mervyn who took hold of it and resurrected it to exactly the state it was 100 years ago, which is amazing. There's not many theatres like that in the world, I promise you. It's
so true, and I know that when we've had people over here in the past, I know with the film festival being able to bring over the likes of John Hurt, and I remember seeing him walk onto the Gaiety stage, and he had a tear rolling down his cheek because he just said it was so beautiful, and he felt really privileged to be able to stand on that stage. And people of the Isle of Man in amateur societies and from all different walks of life get to do that on a regular basis. We are so fortunate.
Yeah, you don't realise how lucky you are. And I used to love it walking into the theatre with professionals. So you maybe pick them up from the airport or go for a drink with them. What have you? It's the first time on the island. They're looking round, thinking, "Whoa, where are we?" sort of thing, expecting it to be a scene from Deliverance or something. And then you walk into the theatre, and you purposely don't tell them what it's like. Some of them done research, but yeah, they're gobsmacked because you have to be. You can see pictures and marketing makes things look great, but when you're actually there and you see all the castings on the walls and everything, they're literally gobsmacked, because a lot of them have never worked, even if they've worked all their lives, they've never worked in a theatre of that quality. And it's something that I have to pinch myself sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And not only these incredible roles that I mentioned, some of the ones I mentioned before that you've played, but you actually, I remember, were part of something extremely special when it was the anniversary of the theatre. I think it was 100 years of the theatre, and they reenacted the Corsican Brothers.
Yes.
And you were actually able to be on the Corsican Trap, weren't you? There's
Yeah.
very few actors in the world who will ever have been able to actually be on a Corsican Trap.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, it didn't work that well because
it jostled a bit, didn't it?
Yeah, the Corsican Trap. It's very hard to do this just on radio, but it's basically what if you can imagine a conveyor belt. So the actors elevated up at sort of a 30-degree angle on a conveyor belt, and a hole in the stage traverses along. So you're coming up, and that was the CGI 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was amazing. So they put low-lying smoke on, and an actor would traverse sideways up the stage. Unfortunately, they couldn't really figure out how it was done. They had to get specialist engineers to make this trap, and so I was the guy that had to come up the ghost out of this trap, and unfortunately it just jolted along, and in most of the performances I had to lever myself out of the thing. Of course, the Victorians would have done that extremely well, but maybe not so much so in the year 2000. But yeah, they did the Corsican Brothers, which was the the whole Corsican Trap thing is very special. They did the Telephone Girl, which I think was the first musical that was ever performed on the Gaiety, and then they did a big favourite, which was Joseph. So we got a chance to do all of these different shows during that summer season, which was amazing.
Yeah, we have seen some fantastic things here. We really have. Now, looking back then at where it all first started for you, in the information you sent me, you said that when you were very little, you were allowed to stay up to watch Fred Astaire films, and you said you thought maybe it was part of some cunning plan. Why is that? Has musical theatre been in sort of your family background then?
Yeah, I had cousins who were in musical theatre in Manchester, and they eventually moved over. Christine Wilde is my cousin, so our mums are our sisters, and so it was in the family, and Mum, I don't know why. I think I probably had sort of natural rhythm dancing around as a kid, and she thought, I'm gonna carefully engineer him into a worthwhile pastime instead of football or something like that. So yeah, she would only let me stay up to watch the likes of West Side Story or Fred Astaire or Gene Kelly films, and stay up till 9 o'clock when you're 7 is a big deal. So I used to pretend to be interested in, but actually I really was. So she's clever, very clever lady. God bless her.
And so did you sort of feel a magic then watching them? Because there is something magical about those, isn't there?
Because you watch how Fred Astaire danced, and it is it is almost magical. The way he moved his whole body to the music was something that I used to get completely fascinated by. And people that speak to me, and I wouldn't be able to talk to them because I'd be so glued onto. I still do that now with Game of Thrones, by the way, but something
slightly different dance
slightly
going on
different,
there,
yeah. But I just ignore people when I'm watching stuff. But yeah, no, it's it was something that engineered by my mum, I think. Yeah.
And then you did eventually start going to your cousin's theatre school, to Christy Theatre School, and what you must have been pretty much the only boy doing that.
I was for a long time. Matthew James, who you probably know, he joined with me but left fairly soon after. So we both decided to take tap lessons. But it was a case of we just fancied the girls that were in it. That was the reason we did it. And we were able to justify it to ourselves. And but yeah, I kind of stuck with it, and Matt went into sort of into the musical theatre role. So I did dance, and Matt joined the operatic, and then about a year after I joined the operatic after Matt. So he was always involved, and we've always kind of been together during that phase.
Any sort of competition between the two of you?
I don't know, a little bit. We're quite different actors, actually. And Matt's got heavily into producing now. So he's producing Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which is a shameless plug, because I'm sure Matt will send me the check, which is going to be amazing. And I do a bit of producing with Panto, but I'm far more interested in performing. But I did drag him on stage at Christmas, so he was my dame in Aladdin.
He was fantastic as well.
He was.
I
always believe in ugly dames. You've got to be really, really pig ugly to be a dame, and so Matt is amazing for that.
Oh, you too. And you did also say, and in your information, you said, try standing at a bus stop with tap shoes in Annika. That's interesting. Did you get any sort of, I don't know, how did your friends react? Were you bullied at all for doing it?
No, I did. I mean, I got a lot of stick, as you can imagine. But yeah, they were in a bus shelter drinking Merry Down, and I was going to parties with girls. That's how I justified
you win.
it. And actually, now I see those guys, and we're still really good friends, and they're like, oh my God, Artie, you did so well out of that, But yeah, it was a council estate, and I was, but I didn't swing my tap shoes round. I had them in a bag, carefully hidden, and then I'd go to class after, sort of thing.
Sensible.
You learn to be not non-confrontational with that sort of thing, don't you?
Yeah. Well, let's get some music on then, because obviously part of this is sharing music over the course of the hour as well. You've chosen some fantastic pieces of music. The first one comes from the Beatles. Tell us why you have chosen this particular song.
Yeah, my mum and dad were amazing. I was adopted, but they had a plan for me, and they watching too much TV was a part of their plan. So every Sunday night we turned the TV off and we listened to all the albums they had, and it was an eclectic mix. There was Motown and big bands and everything, but I cottoned on to the Beatles and I loved it. I always used to badger my mum to put the Beatles on all the time. So yeah, Hard Day's Night was one of the albums that I absolutely loved, and that's what got me into music, I think.
Yeah, so you've chosen Can't Buy Me Love as your first song here. We are talking to David Artus over the next hour. If you want to send messages, you can text 166 177 or email studio@manxradio.com. But let's get his first song choice on now.
Can't buy me love, love, can't buy me love. I'll buy you a diamond ring, my friend, if that makes you feel alright. I'll get you anything, my friend, if it makes you feel alright. 'Cause I don't care too much for money, but money can't buy me love. I'll give you all I've got to give if you say you love me too. I may not have a lot to give, but what I got I'll give to you. I don't care too much for money, but money can't buy me love, can't buy me love. Everybody tells me so, can't buy me love. No, 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 say you don't need no diamond rings, and I'll be satisfied. Tell me that you want the kind of it just can't buy. I don't care too much for money. Money can buy me love. Can buy me love. Love. Buy me love.
Now that is what I call a cracking first choice. That is the Beatles and Can't Buy Me Love, as chosen by David Artus, who's on the Conister Rock with us this afternoon. Just had a message in, David, from Gary Hilton, who says, I remember you when you worked at Ronaldsway Aircraft Company and I was singing in the band. I am now envious of you. There you
God
go.
bless him. Hi, Gary. Yeah, I'll see him some days. Actually, we work quite close to each other. He's a postie. Yeah. Hi, Gaz.
There you go, which is nice. Also, we were talking about the fact that you were adopted, and I asked you over the course of that song if you had actually ever looked into who your birth parents were, and you have, haven't you?
Yeah. I was telling you that in 1969 when I was born, it was all adoption was run by the church. So. My parents, who were amazing, and I regard them as my parents, were very encouraging. Always encouraged me to, if I wanted to, go and find them. But because I had such an idyllic childhood, we didn't have any money, but I was well loved. I didn't feel the need, and it's only really when I had children myself, and I thought, ooh, I better find out if there's any, any health risks or something like that, or, you know what, silly things like, am I going to go bald? So yeah, I went and tried to. It took me a few years because it was run by the church and there wasn't really any records. But yeah, I eventually found out. My mother was a Kenyan nurse who was over here on sort of a sabbatical, and my father was a Manx farmer. So I'm actually a Costain. So I do have a bit of Manx blood in me there. I'm very proud of that. It goes back thousands of years.
Manx and Kenyan, that is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And you've gotten in touch with the family, haven't you? And,
I have, yeah. They're all lovely people. My mother lives in Australia, so I've got 4 brothers and sisters out in Australia, and they're out in the outback, all very interesting. I've got a very intelligent brother, works for NASA, and one who digs roads. And and then over here I've got brothers and sisters as well, half brothers and sisters. So it's all very interesting.
An extended family, which
Yes.
is lovely. We'll be talking more to Dave over the course of the hour. So as I said, if you've got any questions for him, 166 177, but it's just coming up to 24 minutes past 2 now.
The Nation Station, Men's Radio.
One Dental Clinic, sponsors of Women Today, offer convenient appointment times in the heart of Douglas, so you can fit your dental care into your working day.
You are listening to Women Today, but we're on the Conister Rock this afternoon. It's just coming up to 27 minutes past 2. David Artus, we have talked a little bit about your childhood. Interesting looking back at the information about your time in school. It wasn't exactly a brilliant experience for you, was it? Because you talk about the fact that you had dyslexia, but of course because of the time that this was, it remained undiagnosed. But that in itself I find very interesting, because from having dyslexia and, as you describe it, leaving school basically illiterate, and that's in your own words, you have now just surpassed so many boundaries, and in not only having the ability to learn lines and read lines, but writing pantomimes. You call yourself a
Not
speed
necessarily
reader.
the right spelling, obviously.
So how did you get over all of that?
I
then?
don't know. I think and maybe the acting helped, because I put a great deal of effort into hiding the fact that I wasn't very good in school, and hiding in the back and not putting the hand up and that kind of thing. And actually I bump into a few teachers who have said I was just sort of the grey man in school, and I just hid all the time, which was fine. No, and I don't blame the teachers, because they didn't have the training or knowledge to be able to help. And but yeah, no, I did get over it. I someone gave me a book, as I gave you the information. Someone gave me a book when I was 21, and I fell in love with reading, and I just learned to read. The best way it's been described is almost like hieroglyphics. So I'll take whole lines in and sentences and fly through books now, and usually have 2 books going at the same time, and that changed. You become more rounded as an individual once you start to understand people's thought patterns. You can only really do that with books. You don't get it off film particularly, or you don't get it off theatre even. But with imagination is best explored through books, and that's when you start to understand the emotions of people, and the inner turmoils or the inner drives of people, and it helps everything else in life, I think.
That's a very interesting take on it. And from having written pantos then, and what is clearly a real love of books, would you ever consider writing one yourself?
Oh, I don't think I'm interesting enough, really. No, I don't know. Maybe, yeah. Maybe it might be something. I'm always thinking what I should do once I can't do anything else. You know, I used to love art as a kid. The only thing I was ever good at was painting and drawing. And I think I'm going to do that, but maybe when I'm 80.
It'd be a nice thing to retire to.
Yeah.
And you also say that you love a political debate, and one of the reasons you love that is because of the use of the language, having the language, English language, used very, very well. Do you think that stems back in any way to...
Well, again, it all stems from the childhood, doesn't it? Again, it was my parents' influence. They used to have the news on all the time, and my dad used to scream at the telly at Margaret Thatcher, and I used to think, what's he getting so upset about, and he turned in his grave now because my views are quite conservative, actually. But yeah, no, it was something that again, it's the English language, and it's not, you don't get it from plays. I like to see it being used to its full force. So people at work think I'm a freak sometimes when I have to do the boring stuff, and I sort of wire in and get my headphones in. Everyone else is listening to music, and I've got the Commons on live, which is bizarre. So yeah, they throw bits of paper at me and things. But yeah, no, it's I just love the turn of phrase that you can use to enforce your opinion on someone, or to aid a debate. I just find that fascinating, which is freaky, I know.
Well, you're clearly also very proud of being from the island, on the island. You love the Isle of Man. You speak very passionately about the island. And in fact, in your job, I think you have to sort of promote the island in what you do, don't you? Yeah. Do you follow local politics at all?
Not so much. We talked very briefly about some of the challenges that I think are facing the island, and I despair at all these buildings that are going to rack and ruin. And as someone who's bringing clients over, prospective businesses to the island, I'm acutely embarrassed by Summerland and the Imperial and all these horrible eyesores that are everywhere, because really you don't get that in developed places. You go to even Asia, Manila, where I work sometimes, there's sections of Makati, which is all, new money, and it's all, beautiful buildings. There's lots of horrible buildings as well in other parts, but, as an island where we are, as a first world country, we shouldn't have this, So that bit gets my goat sometimes, but yeah, I really should shut up, because I'm not prepared to put myself forward to change anything.
I was going to say, shut up or put up. You could be an MHK,
I can snipe from the sidelines. That's what I'm good at.
You'd be great in a political debate, having watched as many of you as you have. So going back then to the start of your theatrical career, then obviously we talked about you being with Christy Theatre School, with your cousin's theatre school. What was the very first role or very first time you were on stage? Do you remember going from just sort of helping out to actually being on stage in front of an audience?
I do. It was a dance thing, and it was with a lady called Nikki Turner from Manx Glass and Glazing, who probably won't remember this, but we did a short dance section up at the Majestic Hotel, and I vomited very violently in the toilet beforehand because I was so petrified, and I only had to walk on the stage and hold her during a number of poses that she had to do, and it was Hey Big Spender. Yeah, that was my very first audience thing. But yeah, Christine, again, very clever, engineered me into this theatre world by getting me to move scenery when it was a blackout and things like that, and very gradually got me on stage. It wasn't a natural thing. It wasn't something that I wanted to do straight away, but I was fascinated by it, so it must have been in there somewhere.
And I guess as well, the background in doing the scenery and being involved in the backgrounds, the backstage element of things as well, has stood you in really good stead for what you've been doing over the past few years.
Yeah, the dark side, as they like to call themselves, would laugh if you said that, because really I haven't got a clue, because it is an art in its own right, sort of thing. And I'm very definitely a shiny, as they would call me. So the people on the stage and the dark side have their own thing, but I definitely do appreciate what they do, because they're the unsung heroes. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that they're doing get-ins till all times in the day and night, and without them you are absolutely done for. You haven't got the right sound or the right lights or the right scenery at the right place, then everything just goes to a massive shambles.
And the standard of what we sort of expect now from our local theatre groups and musical theatre groups is so incredibly high. I mean, I would have thought it easily matches what you can see in some of the West End productions. And so in order to get to that level, these people have to be exceptionally good at what they do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And some of it's just being clever, because the Gaiety is a working theatre, but you don't get the luxury that you do have in the West End, where they basically rip out the backstage, and put animatronics in it, so there's big extending arms. You can't do that to a theatre of that age. So you have to. It's almost like a halfway house. I can't wait to see Chitty again. Another plug, because they've got to fly that car. Obviously, I'm thinking, how are they going to do that?
But you saw a flying carpet in Aladdin.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that was kind of magical. And again. It's sort of fly by the seat of your pants, actually, as a director and a producer, because you think, is this going to work? Because because a 5-year-old has to believe that's a flying carpet. That's your remit, right, at the start of this. And if a 5-year-old is pointing, going, I can see how that's done, then you might as well go home, right? Mm-hmm. So we flew Jack Divers as Aladdin at Christmas, and everyone was wowed by it. And actually, that was very unsophisticated technology that did that. I'm not going to give the game away.
Don't give it away, because I might not be 5 anymore, but I believe, Dave Artus, I thought it was real. It was beautiful. It was my magic moment. Don't ruin it for me. Let's get some more music on. I want to ask you about your next song, because it involves a first crush, Dave.
Yeah. Well, you'd asked me to compartmentalise my life, and through music, and this one's kind of special, because I always think of as your first crush, which is very powerful, actually, when you think about it. That gut wrenching feel you have, and I fell in love with a girl who was a mod, and it was during the time of Madness's first songs, and so Baggy Trousers is what I've chosen, because it reminds me of that very powerful emotion of a first crush.
Are you feeling it coming back now?
I am. I'm going to get my scooter out later.
Here it is.
Naughty boys in nasty schools, headmasters breaking all the rules, having fun and playing fools, smashing up the woodwork tools. All the teachers in the pub, passing man a ready rub, trying not to think of when the lunchtime bell will ring again. Oh, what fun we had, but did it really turn out bad? All I learnt at school was how to bend, not break the rule. Oh, what fun we had, but at the time it seemed so bad, trying different ways to make a difference too. The headmasters had enough today, all the kids have gone away, gone to fight with next to school. Every term that is the rule, sits alone and bends his cane, same old backsides again, all the small ones tell two tales, walking home and squashing snails. Oh, what fun we had, but did it really turn out bad? All I learnt at school was how to bend, not break the rule. Oh, what fun we had, but at the time it seemed so bad, trying different ways to make a difference through the days. Lots of girls and lots of boys, lots of smells and lots of noise, playing football in the park, kicking push bikes after dark, baggy trousers, dirty shirt, pulling hair and eating dirt. Teacher comes to break it up, back of the end with a plastic cup. Oh, what fun we had, but did it really turn out bad? All I learnt at school was how to bend, not break the rule. Oh, what fun we had, but at that time it seemed so bad, trying different ways to make a difference through the days.
Such a great tune. It is Madness and Baggy Trousers, as chosen by David Artus, who were just talking about his first crush. I was desperately trying to get him to say who it was, but you're being very tight-lipped about it. Are you still in touch with this person?
No.
Did she know? Did she know that you liked?
No, to be fair, no.
Dave
It was
Artus is a mod.
yeah.
Unrequited. Oh, bless you. Anyway, we should really talk more about your theatre and the panto, because it's no mean feat, really, going from being on the stage and performing and taking part in these fantastic roles to actually writing an entire production. And in itself, when you did write your first panto, I think you said it's 2003. That was a heck of a risk, really, because I think at that time, and there might still be there was this perception that you have to have something either off island or from off island to come over here for it to be any good.
Yes.
Would you say that's fair?
That was true. And really what happened is, again, being the sort of token local to the professionals that came over, so they'd hire one or two guys to be in shows or pantos or what have you. And one of the ones that I was in was truly, truly awful. That was the driver for this, because I was sat there during in a dressing room thinking, I'm too embarrassed to go out on stage. The lines were awful, the acting was awful, the scenery was non-existent, and it was just like, do you know what? If I got a blank sheet of paper, I could not come up with a worse show than this. So myself and two good friends of mine, Gary Chattel and Sonia Callan, we approached Mervyn Stokes, who was the manager of the Gaiety at the time, and said, "Look, give us a chance. We're gonna make this a million times better. We'll drive the footfall through." And he took a leap of faith in us as well. So I'm eternally grateful for him. But yeah, it hadn't been done before, and the remit was a Manx professional company. So it was locals, but people who had worked professionally or were training to be professional. And that was a big thing for the island at the time. There's lots of companies that do that now, but not then.
You must have been so nervous when you first put that out on the stage and Mervyn saw it. That sort of element of, I hope we've done him proud.
Well, it was worse than that, Chrissy, actually, because Chris Kane, who you'll obviously know because he works here, he was playing my dame and then broke his leg 3 days before the curtain up. So I was
and
playing...
was it because someone said that to him?
No, I don't think it was. That is what you say, isn't it? Break a leg. But no, he actually did break his leg, and I think if you could die of worry, that would be me at that point. But it's not medically possible to do that, I don't think. But so yeah, I ended up playing Dame. I was playing a lesser role, so I could direct it, and I ended up going on as the Dame in that. So yeah, that first night was literally the scariest thing I've ever done on stage.
And there must have been a lot of pressure as well from the audience who had, because they must have had the high expectations of, can these people do this, can they make us laugh, can they get the balance right? How was it received?
I don't think I think people give too much credence to that, because it's panto is an habitual thing, so they take their family, they don't really know who's producing it or directing it. People say they know who the Operatic are or the Douglas Choral Union, but your average public don't really care or know, so they went, and because we got a lot of repeat business that year, which didn't happen in previous years, we knew that we'd done a good job. We sold 2,000 more seats than previous, and so we've written 7 now, but the most successful was Peter Pan, and we got 12,000 people through the door for that, and that still holds the record. We're very, very proud of that. So that was a big number to get through the Gaiety. That's quite a large percentage of the Isle of Man. So,
and how does the process work? Because you say Peter Pan, there's been Aladdin. They're all big known stories. Okay, the main sort of basis of it is known already. What is your process then? Do you just sort of take the main sort of story points and then build everything else around it, or how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, look, most of it's plagiarism. To be completely honest with you, these are 100-year-old gags that you slightly work in a different way. But the Manx audiences do love Manx references, so you have to make it Manx, right? That's the big thing. Take a story, make it Manx, right? And then the hard bit about panto is you've got to keep everyone happy. So the 5-year-old who you've got to convince there's a flying carpet, or the dad who's a bit hungover, who the last place in the world he wants to be is sat there in that theatre. So you've got to keep everyone happy. That's the trick. That's the trick of it.
And it's also getting a balance between filth and fun, which you somehow manage to do. I don't know how you do it, because those jokes, they do go over the heads of the kids, but they land right in the laps of the grown-ups, don't they?
No, I've ended up on the wrong side of that a couple of times, I have to say. I haven't got that balance right every time, and I have ended up in the paper with with some people being a bit upset. But without that edginess, then everything just gets so boring for the adults watching. You've got to give the adults something, and Double Entendre is perfect for that.
Now we're going from Double Entendre now to what is your next piece of music, which is actually from quite a serious musical theatre piece. You've chosen Gethsemane. Now, you were part of a production of Jesus Christ Superstar. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this is actually my second show with the Manx Operatic Society, and the first show was just about meeting girls and things like that, and I was cast as third leper from the left in Jesus Christ Superstar, and went through the rehearsal process, and still just all about girls. But when the audience was involved, when we got to stage, it was the first time I felt the power of drama and music together. And again, I'm just lying on stage, and Ernie Thorne is singing the song you're about to play. and I found myself crying. That sounds really cliche and horrible, but that's and everyone else in the cast was crying, and the audience, and it was very, very powerful. It was a massive moment for me. It was like, oh, I get this now. This is the first time that I really understand it, and that stayed with me forever. So yeah, it still remains my best musical theatre song.
And it's a beautiful version. This is Steve Balsamo from the original, I think, production of Jesus Christ Superstar. It is Gethsemane.
I only want to say, if there is a way, take this cup away from me, for I don't want to taste its poison, feel it burn me. I have changed, I'm not as sure as when we started. Then I was inspired. Now I'm sad and tired. Listen, surely I've exceeded expectations. Tried for 3 years, seems like 30. Could you ask as much from any other man? But if I die, see the saga through and do the things you ask of me. Let them hate me, hit me, hurt me, nail me to their tree. I wanna know, my God. Wanna know, I wanna know, my God. Wanna see, I wanna see, my God. Wanna see, I wanna see, my God. Why I should die? Would I be more noticed than I ever was before?
It just shows how little I know about musical theatre. Of course, that's not from the first production at all. Who was actually in the first production,
There's a guy
Dave?
called Ted Healy. He's famous from the film, the 70s film, because it was all about, hippies playing a Bible story. Yeah, Ted Healy was amazing. But Steve Balsamo, who you've just played, was I regard as the best. He had this most incredible. You've cut it off there, Christy.
No, but when it goes, when it really hits those high
It's
notes,
amazing,
and
yeah.
he really does. Let's see if I can bring one in. Oh, there you go. I got one of them in for you, Dave. There you go. That
Great.
was Steve Balsamo and Gethsemane. It's because we're running out of time. We're just having a really good natter. We're going to go to a break, and then we've got one more song choice from my studio guest this afternoon, Dave Artus.
Abbey Dental, sponsors of Women Today, for all aspects of today's dental care. Highly recommended throughout the Isle of Man.
Well, I cannot quite believe how fast this hour has gone chatting with Dave Artus. You've got a fair few things to say, haven't you, Dave? It's been fascinating, but we're going to have to wrap it up fairly soon. So I'm going to ask you the question that I think a lot of people would probably like to know, considering that lengthy list of fantastic roles you have played on the stage. Could you pin it down to one that's been your favourite so far?
I always give the same answer, which is Judas from Jesus Christ Superstar, because it was something, because it was my first show that I did, and then I got to play this extremely rocky character, which is, and you're always looking for something that's sort of three-dimensional. He's a bit conflicted. Do you know what I mean? He's not straightforward, I'm a goodie, I'm a baddie. You don't really know, and that part's amazing for that. So you can play it different on different nights if you want to, So that was amazing. But the biggest one, I suppose, was Jean Valjean.
Which, interestingly, you admitted to me before we came in, that wasn't the role that you were going for.
No, I've always wanted to play Thénardier, which is the innkeeper guy, and that's what I went for. And they gave me Jean Valjean, which I'm eternally grateful for. And then it's just been cast again. So it's gone again in February. Please get your tickets. And again, I went for Thénardier, and then they've given me Javert this time. So
which again is an excellent role, to be fair.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy. I'm over the moon, in fact. But yeah, I'll have to wait 10 years years before I play Thénardier. But Mark Doherty from Doherty Quinn is playing Thénardier, and he is hilarious. He was my sort of gay lover in The Producers. So that's weird, isn't it? I can see myself saying that on radio. But anyway, that's. But yeah, no, he is absolutely hilarious. He'll be brilliant.
And while we're speaking of that, we should give a shout out to our Sam Barks, who of course you have shared a stage with before. And did you know back then, when she was that much younger and doing the different roles that she did you have any idea that she was going to be as successful as she has been?
I'd love to say I did, but no, I didn't. I mean, I always say this, and it's not really true, I guess, but I'm saying it is, so it is. But yeah, we gave her a first professional gig in panto. So she was a dancing girl in one of our pantos, in Robinson Crusoe, I think, and again, one for the dads. She was dancing around in a bikini type thing, and yeah, terrible, isn't it? But yeah, no, she is a megastar in theatre, and I don't think, we were discussing earlier, I don't think people on the Isle of Man really realise what this means for the island. She is
from such a tiny population.
She's Pretty Woman on Broadway, brand new musical, biggest musical to come out, and she's from Laxey. That's incredible. That's just weird.
It's because weird. You gave her a first role. That's why, Dave.
It's all down to me. Lucky
Fantastic. Speaking of, if there was one role that you could play apart from Thénardier, in sort of, if you had the choice of anything, what would it be?
I don't know. I've done Phantom and The Engineer and Miss Saigon, and maybe Oliver.
Bit old for Oliver now.
Yeah,
sorry,
Bill
Dave.
Sykes. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
Well, at the end of the day, as we said, the opportunities over here are endless, and so to be fair, whatever it is will probably at some point end up on your lap as an opportunity. So it's fantastic. You can still carry on. It doesn't really matter. But we should really let you get back to what you describe as the good life. I just have to ask you before we do play your final song, Miniature Sheep, Dave Artus. What?
Yeah, it's like a family concern. It's that my wife's father breeds these miniature sheep, and we're kind of involved with that.
Aren't they small enough already?
Yeah, I don't know what they're for. No one can explain it to me. But as I said before, as long as I can, give my wife, my beautiful, understanding wife, a nice project, then I can go and do theatre. So so there's miniature sheep and miniature horses out in Kirk Michael, and yeah, it's a bit like the good life. So we get home and walk along the beach, and we can take the horse on the beach, and
the kids must love it.
Yeah. Oh, we're very lucky because we've got our own little sort of farm, and and they're out, and it's a good family thing as well. So whereas before everyone was on iPads and things like that, we're going, right, come on, let's go and feed the sheep and the horses, and yeah, it's amazing. No, we're very lucky. It
does sound quite spectacular. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up, unfortunately, but we're going to have one more song choice from you, and it is The Smiths. Tell us about The Smiths.
Yeah, well, it's that teenage angst thing. They're my favourite band, and I know people are going to be turning off your radio right now. Hopefully not, but look, it was, in terms of lyrics, I said Morrissey sort of guided me poetically through teenage angst, and that's what music should be about. It's about the power of the lyric and helping you through situations, and I absolutely love the Smiths for that and nothing else.
Well, Dave Artus, it's been an absolute joy being with you this afternoon, and as you said, don't forget to get your tickets for Les Mis, which I'm sure will be going on sale at some point soon. Are you doing the Panto again this year?
No, it's every sort of 3 or 4 years. So
bit of a year off.
Yeah, Cinderella this year. I'm sure it'll be fab. But
I'm sure it will.
Keep up the good work.
Absolutely. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your music choices, and we'll see you on a stage near us sometime soon. All the best.
Thank you, Christy.
Don't believe me. How can they hear me say those words? Still they don't believe me. And if they don't believe me now, will they ever believe me? And if they don't believe me now, will they ever believe me? Oh no. don't believe us. And after all this time, they don't want to believe us. And if they don't believe us now, will they ever believe us? And when you want to live, how'd you start? Where'd you go? Who'd you need to know? Oh,
Abbey Dental, sponsors of Women Today, for all aspects of today's dental care. Highly recommended throughout the Isle of Man.